A third video released by attackers of the Abuja-Kaduna train attack has shown that more kidnapped passengers are still in custody of the terrorists. In the latest series of videos sent by the terrorist group, a woman who identified herself as Gladys put a direct call to the Nigerian Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, whom she said was her classmate in law school from 1978 to 1979. Trust TV's Nana Muhammad tells us more on this.
Standing beside the kidnapped victims, the masked terrorist with AK-47 ordered his captives to speak. In a frantic and desperate attempt to draw the attention of the Nigerian federal government, the passengers said they were kept in horrible conditions. Gladys, a classmate of the Nigerian Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, tearfully appealed to the VP and the immediate past Nigerian Minister of Transport, Rotimi Amechi, to come to their rescue.
I'm appealing particularly to Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who was my classmate, 78, 79 law school. You are a grandfather, you are a father. Come to our aid because we've been here for 62 days. I have a son who is a sickler and I don't know his condition. I'm pleading that the federal government and Amechi, who is the minister for transportation, should come to our assistance.
Mariam Abubakar, who appeared in the previous video, told Nigerians and the government that 2 of her children are sick and are in need of medical attention.
We've been here for 62 days in an unfavorable, inhabitable condition, unimaginable. We've been sick. In fact, one of my sons, 2 of them are even sick at the moment with no medical supply. So we're pleading with you to please come to our aid.
Sadiq Abdullahi, the eldest son of Ango Abdullahi, who also appeared in the 3rd video, said most of the people in captivity are sick and pleaded for governments to come to their rescue.
We are appealing to the federal government to once again come to our aid. We've been here for 62 days. Most of us here are sick and we are not in good condition. And every day the situation gets deteriorating.
The second video was sent on 26th of March 2022 with a threat by the terrorists to start executing their victims if governments fail to meet their demand. A Pakistani national called the attention of international organizations and his government to intervene.
I'm a foreign national, Pakistani national. So we were abducted on 28th March from the Abuja-Kaduna train. And we are here, we are 62 people, and the conditions are not very good. So we are appealing to the government of Pakistan and government of Nigeria and to the whole world international community so that they can help us.
The consistent calls and direct pleas to important and influential people may not be unrelated to the slow response by the government to secure the release of some of the 62 passengers still in captivity. There have been persistent calls to draw the government's attention. Whether or not the government heard their calls, time is of the essence to rescue the kidnapped train passengers. Nana Muhammad, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Well, there you have it, a report on the Abuja-Kaduna train abductees who are still in custody of the terrorists. And now we have in the studio a security expert, Stephen Okori, to talk to us about this recent development. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, quite a sad video, the third of its kind since the abduction of these Abuja-Kaduna train abductees who are still in custody right now. The terrorists have, made, their position clear that they want, release of, their children who were abducted, and then they will begin negotiation after the release of these children, that some will be released, and then not that all will be released if the children are brought back, and all of that. And some of these videos that are coming up now, do you think that, it's in the best interest of the families to be seeing some of these videos coming out in this manner?
Yeah. I want to say that it is for the best interests of the families of the victims. Why? Because in such incident, there's need for proof of life, you know, for the families of the victims to be very sure that their loved ones are still alive. So releasing such videos gives the families the confidence and assurance that their loved ones are still in captivity and they are still alive. We have seen situations where victims are killed or dead, and they still go ahead to pay ransom and all that without knowing that their loved ones were dead. You know, so the release of the video for me, it's good, coming up that for their families to see that their loved ones are alive. Then going further, you see.
But what about the emotional stress and the, you know, because this is like, you know, tampering with an injury that is, you know, well, not healing
That
per
is not
se,
healed,
but you know, it's just there. So
which one will you
the
prefer?
emotional stress.
Yes, well, yes. But which one will you
torture.
prefer? Which one will you prefer? Seeing that your loved one is alive, and the situation where you are just left in the dark, not being sure that the person is alive.
Because seeing the victims now does not guarantee that they will be released, and it's not like the families. It's not like there's anything that the families can do right now.
Yeah.
It's not like the bandits are seeking for ransom from them. So, you know, it puts a kind of emotional pressure, I don't know, in my thinking, on the families.
I agree with you, but I want to put it to you that it is better for you to know that your loved one is alive. Like, for instance, the ones we have seen in the video, you know, so that as the negotiation goes on, don't forget that negotiation is going on, just that it's slow on the part of government. So you are seeing videos that they are alive, gives you some kind of confidence. Don't mind the emotional trauma or torture they are going on. You know, so I want to believe that the negotiation is going on. Very recently, the presidency said that negotiation is going on and all that. But the problem is that the negotiation is slow. You know,
it doesn't appear as if the government has made any progress in that negotiation.
Yes. You know, this is a very delicate and unfortunate situation. It's a matter that is between life and death, you know. So there's need for wisdom, a lot of caution and patience to be applied, you know. But for me, as if the patience is being stretched, you know, there's need for a more proactive measures. This is not the first time that kidnappers or terrorists have kidnapped and they are asking for such negotiation without asking for money. And the government went ahead to see how to see how to cage in that, to see how to rescue victims, you know. So it's not the first time. For me, I think that they would have been able to learn from the previous experience to be able to be proactive in such further situations or incidents that we find ourselves.
What do you think is responsible for this delay? Because right from the beginning, the bandits have always insisted that the government knows what we want.
Yes.
So what do you think is responsible?
The first of all came out to say that they were asking for release of their 16 commanders. That is under the security, with the security agencies. Before this other information now came up about their children and relatives that were also picked up, you know. So it's a very, very delicate situation that is very dicey, that where we need very serious caution. I think that's what is slowing it, but despite that, I feel that it's slow, you know, because, and you know, it has to do with if there are rules of engagement within the military or the police, you know, but the terrorists don't have that. So if the police or the military want to see how to go about the rules of engagement, at the end of the day, there will be collateral damage. I think that's what the government is trying to see how to avoid, where lives will not be lost, you know. But for me, I think that there's need for them to be more proactive in these situations that we find. It's not new, so there's need for us to keep improving on how to go about it.
Now, we've continued to hear how that the parents or the relatives of the victims have complained about not being in the loop of what's happening, you know, with their family members and all of that, even after when the president said that, you know, they should be given an on the spot, you know, information, every bit, you know, all the way as to what's really happening and all of that. So do you think that maybe there's a way that the government can actually engage with their relatives in such a way that it can help them to at least to reduce the pressure on them.
Yeah, but you know, this situation is a very severe situation. What I mean is that there's a lot that the military and the government needs to do in terms of trying to see how not to divulge a lot of information about the way, the manner they are going about it. I think that there are some professional ethics that needs to come to play. Confidentiality, where they need to be covert about what they are doing. You know, keep some secret to themselves. It's not every information that they need to divulge to the families of the victims on the way and manner they are going about the release of their loved ones. So they should filter those informations, you know, because whether we like it or not, these terrorists are glued to their radio, and we don't know where they live, you know, and most of them even watch television sets to see the effort the government is making towards how to get to them. So by hearing or watching that, they are even trying to see how to fortify their base, you know, for the military or the police not to come in to attack them.
Okay, I think there's some kind of concern here. Now, these bandits have said that release our children,
Yes.
8 of them, and then we release some people, and then negotiation begins.
Yes.
Is the government in a tight corner here? Because it appears that at what point would the negotiation stop? At what point would the demands from the bandits stop?
Exactly. You see, it's unfortunate that the government have put themselves at the mercy of these terrorist groups or bandits, whatever they call them. You know, the situation right now is that the terrorists have the knife and the yam at the same time. They decide what the government will do. You know, they have pushed their demands to the government, so it's not left for the government to obey what they are asking for. So such situation, they have put the government in a very tight corner.
Isn't that dangerous for the total fight against insecurity in the country, though?
It is dangerous. And I put it to you that it's unfortunate that these criminals are always ahead of the government or the law enforcement agents that we have. They're always ahead. And they mostly strike before our own security agencies begin to react. So they're always ahead. That's the unfortunate thing. So it puts the government in a very tight situation.
All right, now let's talk about how to change this narrative. How this is, I mean, 2022, and if you look at the newspapers, you know, it's a reflection of what's going to happen in 2023. Everyone is talking politics.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like much attention is given to the issue of insecurity. I mean, in the past, we'll say 2 months or 3 months, what has changed really in terms of deployments, in terms of strategy, in terms of the, you know, the will to really go after these bandits and end this once and for all?
If you ask me, I will tell you that nothing has changed, because we are still experiencing the challenges we are talking about. Nothing has changed, really. As of yesterday, people were still kidnapped. Yesterday, a lot of criminal activities are happening, both within and outside the FCT that we are all over Nigeria. So nothing has changed.
Okay, I'm always wondering, as a security expert,
Yes.
this is a country with over 200 million people, and then a group of people is holding the entire country to ransom. Why is that so?
You know, I just said earlier that it's unfortunate that this group of few people are always ahead. Wherever they sit to plan, to carry out these attacks, the law enforcement agents are not privileged to have that information or to know where they are, you know. And, you know, crimes are local. And that is why each time I find myself in any forum like this, I try to emphasize on the use of local vigilante and applying the community policing strategy, you know, because these two must work together to be able to, you know, go to the grassroots. Because these bandits or criminals, they hibernate in our communities, whether we like it or not.
In fact, the other time we saw how they were sharing biscuits.
Yes.
And
it was a festival, and everybody...
Yeah, biscuits and beverages to local communities, doing stunts with, you know, motorbikes, And, you know, the communities were cheering, and we saw that in a video.
Yes, why
You
would
know,
they cheer?
So when you see things like that,
Yes.
you know, how does it worry you as to what we're really doing?
It bothers me. It bothers me. But you see, unfortunately, the government, I would say, have impoverished these citizens for crying out loud. How biscuits and all that be given to? They are hungry. You know, they are so poor, they are hungry, they cannot meet their needs or immediate wants, you know. So when these people, terrorists, offer them biscuits and all that, you see, it's the even means of luring them into their group. It's a recruitment process as well. If we look at it, with that, they are recruiting more, bringing them to their camps.
Okay, let's even look at that particular scenario also.
Yes.
What happened in Kaduna then was that this particular group of criminals or terrorists, as they were providing cover for that community from another set of criminals.
Yes.
How did we get there? Where you run to criminals for protection.
It obviously shows that the government is not meeting the security of lives and property of her citizens. For a criminal group, protecting citizens against another criminal group. So it goes to show that it's the Ansaru terrorist group that is providing security for these communities in Kaduna against these terrorists and bandits that usually come to kill them.
From Zamfara.
From Zamfara and all that. So it goes to show that it's a failure of, I'm sorry to say, it's a failure of the government, because their primary responsibility is to provide security for lives and property of our citizens. It's a constitutional thing. So in the event that you are not meeting up in the provision of this basic responsibility that you are supposed to offer to our citizens or your citizens, it means you have failed.
You know,
the citizens are now relying on bandits or criminals for their own security.
You know, some have blamed that on the fact that we do not have enough boots on the ground. A lot of, you know, other experts have said we need to mop up, you know, all our security agents in the country and increase the number of our security agencies. What does it take to increase the number or the size of our defense forces? What does it take, and how much more do we need to be able to at least have control, you know, of our territory efficiently?
It doesn't take anything to increase the number. We have able-bodied youths that are willing to get into the job. They are not given the opportunity. You know, I've done a research sometime where the UN recommended number of citizens that a police officer should be or guard is about 350 to 400. A police officer to 350 to 400 citizens. That's the UN recommended ratio. But what we have in this country, the last time I did my walk-ins, it's like 1,000 citizens to a police officer. So we have, you know, overshoot the required number. Even with the 350, 400 that the UN recommended, in the situation that we find ourselves in this country, it's not workable. You know, coming to look at the current number that we have.
I think that figure they are giving is in an ideal situation when there is no war, when there is no conflict.
Exactly. So there is need for us to now see how to improve on that. I have said it that security anywhere in the world is not cheap. There is need for us to recruit more. We have them. How can you have, we have about 371,000 police officers in this country. If you put the military all together, the Army, Navy, and the Air Force, it is not up to 500,000. So by the time you put all the security agencies that we have together, how many do you have?
So how much more do we need to recruit now to be able to at least have that United Nations requirement?
How much more? A country that is about 200 million over, and we have less than 400,000 police officers, we should be talking about 1 million or more. 1 million or more to police over 200 million Nigerians. And you know, the police are saddled with the internal security issues, you know. So when you have 300 and something thousand policing 200 and over 200 million Nigerians, how can you get result? You cannot get result.
Okay. Each time we have continued to lament this situation. Each time we talk about it, we lament it. And then I've seen security experts always talk about it.
Yes.
Okay, this is the way to go and this is the way to go. Why are we not going somewhere? Why are we still in the point of lamentation?
It's unfortunate that we're always being the point of lamentation.
When are we going to move from that point? Because we are staying in that point of lamentation for too long.
Exactly, I agree with you. All what we are saying behoves on the government to see how to take us from the situation of lamentation to the point of seeing results.
Why do you think it's not moving to do that?
I think a lot of things are involved here. You know, number one, the will. You see, the will is very key in what we're saying here. And a lot of these people that are in one office or the other saddled with the responsibility of seeing that Nigeria is in a safe situation or condition. What bothers them most is their interest. They try to see how to make money from it. You cannot erase that at all. Corruption is key in what we're saying. So their interest is to see how to make money. By the time you see that you take care of all this that we are talking about, the means of how to make this money will not be there anymore. So the more money, the more the crisis, the more money. And unfortunately, budgets that have to do with security are not explainable. So they capture that point and see how to. It's unfortunate that since we started fighting these insecurity issues, I think very seriously since 2007 to date, it has made a lot of police officers, a lot of military officers billionaires. These monies are monies meant for fighting or curbing insecurity situations in this country. It's unfortunate, but these are the facts.
Especially when you look at the deplorable conditions of how, you know, sometimes our security agencies on the field are actually faring in terms of their welfare.
Exactly.
I saw a video on social media some days ago of a soldier who obviously is in the bush somewhere, you know, on the front line. Not exactly sure whether it is northwest or the northeast, but, you know, he was out to fetch water, and I'm sure water for probably some of the needs that they, they need to use for. You know, 3 jerrycans, carrying 2 on both hands. I think about the 50 liters, you know, jerrycans. 1 here, 1 here, and then he's carrying the third one with his teeth.
What?
Yes.
50 liters?
Yes. You know, so when I saw that, I just kind of imagine, how can someone be on the front line, having to focus on the enemy, and then at the same time having to be dealing with how to survive, you know, with things like just water, ordinary water,
things
and
as
other
basic as water.
basic things, you know, that
but
they need there.
The officer there is in the war front. You don't expect him to get water supply.
So there's no water supply in the war front?
How possible can you do that? Is it a tanker that will go to the war front to supply you water?
So what's the essence of all the planes that we have and all the choppers? I mean, these criminals, they get these supplies, isn't it?
They
get these supplies using aircrafts and even choppers. We heard so.
And they don't have the resources of the state.
So how is it that, you know, our own troops cannot have those things available to them? Like, what does it take to actually supply?
To supply water?
Yes, for them.
You see, it's unfortunate that, but the fact, when they are in such situations in the war front, their comfort is kept by the corner. You know, I watched the video too where they were lamenting the rain falling and they beating them in their tents and all that. They are in the war front. These are sacrifices they have to pay. But in compensation, their remuneration should not be taken for...
But there are instances where even that one is not being paid to them.
That's a problem too. So in compensation, they are supposed to be compensated for the services that they render.
But you know, I agree that once you are in the war front,
Yes.
you are not in a comfort zone.
Exactly.
You let go of a lot of things. But there are basic things that has to be provided. The fact that you are in the war front, you don't eat,
Those ones are.
is that the case?
Those ones are basic.
So it's basic. I mean, water is also basic, isn't it? Should you now be drinking bad water because you are in the war front?
You need to be healthy to fight,
To
right?
fight, isn't it?
You need to be healthy to fight.
Yes.
You understand? But just the way I said, comfort when you are in such situations are relegated. Morale booster is key here. If the soldier that you saw with gallons of water, if he's compensated very nicely the way it ought to be, he won't be complaining of what he's going through. So there's need for them to be highly motivated, because the sacrifice that they pay for the benefit of we that are sitting here is key. Of course, you know that they lose their lives and all that. So they need to be motivated heavily. But when this motivation does not get to them, that's where you see them begin to raise issues like that.
Okay, how about in some instances where their leaders, the top,
Yes.
the leaders begin to look a bit different when because of these security votes because of the monies that are being appropriated to fight insecurity. And for instance, maybe the leader of a particular security agent.
Yes.
You see that the way he was living before changes shortly after some monies were paid. Why is it not picked up? Why is nothing done about it? Because it just means that money is not going to for the reason for which it was given, right?
Yes, exactly. But we are seeing the efforts of the EFCC in trying to see how to pick certain officers that have diverted such funds. Like we saw the case of the late Badi, even one of the former chief of air staff, even the chief of army staff. You see there are cases in the EFCC before the court of law, but it's not. It's just you can count the numbers of officers that are facing charges in the area of corruption. They are very few. They are very few, and it's low.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This is where we'll end the discussion on the program today. We thank you for coming on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. We've been speaking with security analyst Stephen Okore, and he joins us to talk about the recent video released by the abductors of the Kaduna Abuja train passengers.